Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's October 25th, 2021. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we talk about the news of the day. Matt, they won. They won.
A miracle.
322 days between victories over a Power 5 opponent, but the Canes came out 1 point ahead of NC State on Saturday night at Hard Rock Stadium. We were there, so let's start off today's show by talking about the game. And, you know, the one thing that really stood out to me is that it was clearly, and it could have gone either way, just like them all, but this clearly was the best job of game planning that this coaching staff has done this season, without question, to my eye. And, you know, I'm talking about Manny Diaz coming out with a definitive plan on defense. He was going to take away the NC State rushing attack. He loaded the box, dared them to try to run against his defense. They struggled all night doing so, but they didn't abandon it, which I thought was interesting. But they did really struggle to get their running game going. And then the other thing that stood out to me was Rhett Lashley was aggressive. He had defined playmakers. His quarterback, who was being allowed to make NFL throws down the field. Charleston Rambo, his number one wide receiver, who wasn't always used as a number one wide receiver in all those games this season, was used as a number one wide receiver. And Jalen Knighton, some people might not like how much he was run up the middle, but he was used as a run-pass threat, and something that you've been calling for in particular was very actively used in the passing game. So you put it all together, Matt, and to me, that's why Miami came out 1 point ahead of NC State on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I'd add a little more. I mean, look, I did say they need to throw the ball to Jalen Knight, and it's not a secret. I mean, don't run him up the middle. The times they ran up the middle, nothing worked. I mean, that's silly. Then they tried it with Cody Brown a little bit. That didn't really work either. But you know what? These runs up the middle that are so predictable on these third and short, Rhett Lashley does that 99% of the time. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's like, you know, it's these coaches like to think, you know, it's football. It's our guys against your guys. If we can't get a yard, we don't deserve to win. Okay, I get that. But, like, then you don't deserve to win because you're never getting the yard. Find something else to do. And the one time they did something different was when they threw that pass to Jalen Knighton for a 53-yard touchdown. You know, if I remember correctly, that was a short yardage situation. They didn't run up the middle. Instead, they had him go flex out. Well, they had him in the backfield, and they just ran the route, beat the linebacker, and he was gone. So, you know, that's great. The only, other thing I'd add is, like, look, I mean, it's easy to say it was the best game planning game, and it certainly appeared so to my eyes also. But, you know, it always appears the game plan works when the plays work, right? And I don't think they were drawing up plays for those first 6 games or 5 games, forget Central Connecticut State, for those first 5 real games that they thought wouldn't work. It just worked against NC State. And if it hadn't worked against NC State, and if NC State had come out throwing against one-on-one coverage with success, which they did have some success later in the game doing that, we would have been saying, what a horrible idea to stack the box and leave everyone one-on-one, and they threw for 180 yards in the first quarter or something like that. You know, like it just turns on a dime. It's almost like, you know, I hate to say it because fans hate it when you say this, and I get it, but Miami lost their 2 ACC games by 1 play. I mean, they just did. They're not good enough.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear that.
But the point is, they're not good enough to beat an average ACC team, so go ahead and lose. You don't deserve to win. If you can't beat an ACC team by more than just going for it in the last play, of course not. But, you know, there is an argument that somebody who wants the administration to stay in place, i.e. Manny Diaz, can make, where Manny Diaz can say, look, we should be undefeated just like Pittsburgh right now. Now, you know, I don't want to go rambling on, but like, is Pittsburgh a mirage? Not on offense, but I'm not sold on Pittsburgh's defense right now because they haven't beat anybody. They haven't stopped anybody that I think is any good on offense. And they've given up a bunch of points to people. You and I were talking about that earlier today that aren't real good on offense. And so can Miami beat Pittsburgh? I said going into the NC State game, I said they could beat NC State. I know one of our friends in the media was saying they're going to lose by 4 touchdowns before the game, a very vociferous reporter. And, I was saying to him, I said, look, they could win a close game or lose by 4 touchdowns. I could see either one, depending if they come to fight or not. And they came to fight and they won a close game. And I could see the same thing at Pittsburgh. Like, Pittsburgh's not, people are saying Pittsburgh's the best team in the ACC based on what they've done. If you look at who they beat and what those scores were, throw out those stats. I mean, I understand on offense, they're really, really good. Probably the best offensive team in the ACC. But on defense, they're susceptible. And the way Tyler Van Dyke played and the way Jalen Knighton's playing, Miami can keep up with them on offense potentially. If they get enough stops, they can beat Pittsburgh. And if they beat Pittsburgh on the road, another ranked team, now where the heck does Miami go? Like, this is why I said they needed to get rid of Manny Diaz before the NC State game. Now they're like, what do you do? I mean, it's gonna be crazy. If they beat Pittsburgh on the road, it's going to be the most schizophrenic fan base and administration at Miami you'll ever see in your life. And if Miami keeps winning or, maybe wins out other than maybe one other game after Pittsburgh, which who's to say they won't if they beat NC State and Pittsburgh back-to-back, like, we have Manny Diaz for another year? I don't know. But this is what you and I were saying. You and I disagreed. You're like, keep Manny. I'm like, if they're going to get.
Oh, no. Not. I think
keep Manny for the year, for that season. You said there's no reason to get rid of him now.
Let him keep coaching this
I remember
year.
The wheels turning. Yeah. Don't tell me no, because you said the wheels are turning. Let him finish the season. This is why I said no. If you already know
I still feel that way.
Cut bait. I said if it's the wrong fit, cut bait, and they didn't. And now if they beat Pittsburgh, they may be, in this just the wheel that keeps going round and round. But instead of the wheels turning and changing things, it's just a bunch of hamsters going around the wheel, and it's the same thing over and over again. So anyway, is there time up? I think we got to go, right?
No, you're good. Here's my thing. Like, the kids are playing very hard and they matter. Okay. And what's the point of blowing up their apple cart needlessly? Like, Manny,
it's not about this year.
No, I understand, but it's not stopping the board of trustees from doing their work behind the scenes.
If Manny runs if Manny wins out, which he won't, but if he wins out,
if he runs the table, they have a decision to make. I agree. If they're 7-5, there's no issues. Like, if he wins 6 straight games here and they finish 8-4,
okay, but then
I'll agree they have a decision.
Okay, but you got to stop right there because you're saying that, but you've already previously said and pretty much most of the people covering this team know this is not going to be a formula that works. So why are you dragging it out? Why are you even giving them the option to drag it out like this?
Because your option is making Jess Simpson the interim head coach. Like,
Manny could stay as the acting head coach and just tell him, listen, we're looking, and you're going to be replaced.
I think had they lost Saturday night, they would have done that. I think they got.
Why not before the game if you know it's the right move for the program?
I don't know, man. It's like to me, the whole thing's a mess. But I think that this whole concept of rooting for losses, like, the kids don't deserve that. You can't do that. These kids are out there, like,
100% agree.
They're playing so hard. I mean, you watch the game, and they're trying so hard to win these games, and there was so much happiness amongst those kids when they did win last night. So, I get it. Hey, you're cheering for a loss, you want change and all that, but there could be. They just lost. They went 322 days without beating a Power 5 team. Like, number one, what are the chances of 6 straight wins? And number two, if they do win 6 straight games, I mean.
Okay. Well, let me stop you there, because if Tyler Van Dyke is the quarterback that we saw on Saturday night, and if this defense plays as hard as it did, which is not a good defense, but plays as hard as it did, I'm not counting out something crazy happening the rest of this year, because Tyler Van Dyke throws those passes on target with the weapons they have on offense. They can keep up with a lot of teams. And they have, like I said, look, I've said this a million times, the talent, the young talent is there to be really good. Like, regardless who the coach is, I've said that before, I still believe it, especially bringing some transfers this offseason, but there's enough there right now. When you look at the rest of the schedule, like, who's good after Pittsburgh they're playing? if they beat Pittsburgh, I mean, I will personally be predicting that Miami at most will lose one more game the rest of the way. I mean, one of their other teams is Duke. They're not, Georgia Tech, like, at home, Virginia Tech's not that good at home. Like, who on paper would they lose to if they beat Pittsburgh and NC State back to back with Tyler Van Dyke playing great both games?
I know it could happen, and
It's
then
crazy.
And then somebody's gonna have to put their big boy pants on and make a decision. My opinion, if I were running the show at that point, was if I can get Mario Cristobal, I have to make the change. If I can't get Mario Cristobal and Manny wins 6 straight games, I might let Manny come back next year. I mean, I know that's not what people want to hear. I know they're going to start ripping me on the message boards all over the internet. But how do you fire somebody who's won 6 straight games? And I don't know. It's going to be tricky because you're going to have on one side, that the program is not competitive against upper tier competition. That's been proven. That hasn't changed. Okay, what we have here is an ACC where everyone's about at the same level. It's all average teams, and everyone takes turns beating each other. And Miami, even though they won on Saturday night, and there's no shame in the breaks that they got, because when a field goal attempt hits the left upright, that's certainly a break going against you. But they had a fumbled punt taken off the board, a fumbled punt that was fumbled twice, taken off the board for starters last night. A whole multitude of drop passes by NC State that you may not always see, and you only came out 1 point ahead, and NC State kind of fell apart in the last few minutes as well. But that's the ACC, and everybody takes turns beating each other. And Miami's lost a couple of these games, and now they've won one, and that's the way it goes. NC State won a couple, now they've lost one. North Carolina, same deal. They're winning some, they're losing some. Trust me, it's coming for Wake Forest. I can't imagine any way that they're going to run the table. Clemson keeps losing this year, but they're capable of rising up and winning games, like anybody else. You could go on about this conference. It's full of average teams that just take turns beating each other, and you're going to win some and lose some in those situations, Matt.
Listen, forget all that, okay? Let's get back to the heart of the matter. We were just talking about Manny Diaz and should have been let go before the NC State game. And I'm going to tell you something, okay? Blake James can't get out of his own way. He literally tried to set up being able to get rid of Manny Diaz after the NC State game by conducting a few puff interviews where he just basically over and over said, we're not guaranteeing Manny Diaz's job. We're evaluating constantly. We have to see, to show he's doing his due diligence. So that way, after they lost to NC State, he could say, okay, we've evaluated, this is it, So he had the timeline in place, whatever. Instead of just having the guts to do it right there. Like, he didn't even have the courtesy to tell Manny Diaz, hey, Manny, just so you know, I'm meeting with the media, let's have a talk beforehand so we can, make sure that you understand what I'm going to be talking about. He didn't even tell Manny, your job's not safe. Like, I don't know how an athletic director operates, like, in these situations behind the scenes, but, like, I can't imagine that's the way you do it.
No.
Don't talk to your head coach. Talk to the media. Let them know the head coach could be fired very soon because he doesn't have.
He didn't say that. He said he's being evaluated.
And now Blake James looks like a moron because now what's he going to do? You can't fire him now. He literally, Blake James said, we're constantly evaluating to see how they're performing. He basically put himself in a corner where if Manny Diaz wins the next 6 games, he's stuck with Manny Diaz, or he looks like a total hypocrite for saying he was evaluating the coach the whole time, and now the coach won all these games, and I'm going to get rid of him anyway? I mean, it's embarrassing what Blake James did. I don't understand it. I don't know what was going through his head. I talked to a reporter the other day at the game who ran into Blake James after an availability with the team, asked Blake, hey, Blake, do you have a minute to talk? And Blake's like, no. And then literally later that day, Blake starts setting up interviews with other media outlets because he wanted to deal with other people, not with the people who might ask questions he doesn't like, which, listen, I get it. People are critical of you. Like, whoever that guy was who said, we're effing haters, like, I wouldn't invite that guy to dinner and talk to him, but I might invite some other message board people. Okay, I wouldn't invite any of you to dinner, but maybe like a lunch in a crowded area outside where they like check your bags for guns. Like, I might meet you there. But my point is, you're not going to want to talk to people who, have been very critical of you and are going to ask you some probably not real nice questions. So I get it. But to even have that interview and those interviews, he's painted himself into a ridiculous corner to where it's like, what do you do when you just said you're evaluating him constantly to see where things stand, no decision's been made, and all of a sudden, okay, we evaluated, he won 6 games in a row, but we've got to get rid of him? No, I mean, it's just a joke.
Disgraceful. It was absolutely disgraceful for him to, listen, everybody sees the pluses and minuses of Manny, but you don't have to embarrass him nationally like that. Like it was just not necessary.
It makes it look like a cartoon program what he did.
Yes, it does. I agree.
All the ESPN talk of we're all together, we're working hand in hand on everything. What are they talking about? There's no separation between me and Manny and the president. We're all working hand in hand. This was exactly the opposite of all that they said nationally was not true. It obviously was true because he right away went behind Manny Diaz's back to the media. And like Manny literally said, I had no idea he was talking to you guys. This was also a surprise to me. So you may as well just go out, Blake James, and say, ESPN was right. I lied when I said that they were not correct because you proved it. Like, it's mind-boggling.
I mean, he really embarrassed himself. And I don't know if you watched Game Day Saturday, but Game Day was almost embarrassed to even mention it. Like they mentioned it very briefly and then moved on. I mean, it was so stupid. And, Blake did. He looked like a fool for doing that. I mean, if you're going to fire Manny, okay? Everybody understands. The majority of the fan base wants you to fire Manny anyway. So if you're going to do it. But, you don't need to embarrass them beforehand. Like putting out a press release saying we fired Manny.
It's embarrassing the program because
humiliating.
You're in lockstep with everybody. What head coach is going to want to work for a guy who just did that to the previous coach? Like it literally makes no sense across the board having those interviews done. Even what he said, even how he did it, not telling Manny after telling the entire country, I work very hand in hand with Manny. We're all in conjunction from the president to the head coach. We talk about everything. We're lockstep together.
We're all aligned. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's the word I was looking for. Aligned.
Well,
really aligned. Manny Diaz. I had no idea he was talking to the media about me. It was all a shock to me. I mean, that's literally what he said after the game.
I know.
I can't, we got to end this. My blood pressure, I'm already on medication. I just can't do this. We got to end this interview. Or whatever this is. Is this a blog? What is this? I don't even know what we do.
Well, we've been pretty hard in our critiques of Manny the last 3 years for justifiable reasons. I mean, it's been a struggle from minute one that he became a head coach, and it wasn't a surprise for all the reasons that we've talked about in the past. But I got to give him a lot of credit for this week. I mean, he didn't flinch. I'm sure that bothered him. But I'm telling you, that team on Saturday night was as well prepared for that game as they have been for a game.
Best I've seen them play in years.
In years, right?
Desire-wise, not talent-wise, desire-wise, and playing hard to
and just with a plan, Matt. With a plan.
The plan doesn't. It's not. Look, like I already said,
the plan means a lot because they've been coming out. Wait a minute. Time out. They have been coming out and getting outgained in the first quarter of the previous two games, 171 to 12.
And I know you say it's the plan, but I'm trying to tell you.
It's 100% the plan. They were getting undressed as coaches.
If the plays worked the way they were supposed to, and if the players executed the plays, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. That's all I'm saying. If there was a guy breaking down on some of these plays and the quarterback was getting hit and not getting protection like he was in those first, couple of halves of the other game, like these plays wouldn't have worked either. Like I understand the plan looks like it worked great because it did work great. And the previous two games, it didn't work great until the second half, even though it was the same plan, by the way, but the players had the exact same plan in the second half.
No, Lashley was way more aggressive last night than he's been. No, he actually remembered that he had tight ends on his team. I mean, correct. Way more aggressive.
But remember, we asked Lashley this, and Lashley literally said, we have plays dialed up for the tight end, and the quarterback just wasn't able to get it to him. Like, is that Will Mallory not running the right route? Is that pass protection breaking down? Is that the quarterback freaking out, because he's a young quarterback? Like, that's all I'm saying. We don't know the plan. It looked like the plan was the best plan ever. I'm saying the players played the best. I'm not going with the plan because I'm not a big into this. Like the plan is everything. I'm into the players executing.
Team's game plan, Matt. They spend hundreds of hours dissecting their opponents and the pluses and minuses of every single player. If they're doing it properly, they're breaking down every single player that lines up for the other team.
Game.
And they're looking at film.
All of a sudden become geniuses. These coaches have been doing this for a long time. It's not just one game, all of a sudden they're geniuses.
But how often does it look like they actually did it? How often does it look like they actually did it? Not often. And that's been one of the big problems under Manny Diaz. And, I thought Saturday night they gave themselves a chance. They had an edge. I thought they gave it.
They executed the plan, and the plan was really, really good. That's how I would put it.
That's what it looked like to me. And they still almost lost. How amazing is that?
NC State's pretty good though, but yeah.
I know NC State's pretty good. They didn't play their best on Saturday, but why would they? They're on the road, night game at Miami. If you're looking at their schedule, you've circled that game as a potential loss before the season even started. Night game on the road at Miami. I mean, they should be losing that game. Like what should happen happened.
Look, I mean, there's no making excuses for Manny Diaz, but it's a fact. They lost their two of their three best running backs. They lost their star quarterback. They lost 3 offensive linemen or 2. I can't remember. I guess Justice Oluwaseun is back. They lost 2 of their starting offensive linemen. Their center, who was their mental leader, making the calls in the middle. That's a lot of the offense. That's half the offense injured, okay? Defense was never good to start with, and they've had to bench players on defense. No major injuries, but they bench guys and things like that because defense isn't playing up to par. But this was supposed to be an offense that carried this team. I mean, look, the coaching, without question, is not good. I mean, we've gone to the practices. We've seen it's a joke on Green Tree, okay? But, this team has battled through some serious adversity, including losing 2 heartbreakers, having all these injuries. The fact that these guys came out, I don't care about the plan again. They came out and they played their hearts out. And they didn't care about the outside noise. And Corey Flagg was nice enough to berate us after the game, telling us, how we have no idea how great Manny Diaz is, which thank you, Corey. We appreciate that, But the guys believe and they're trying and they want it to work. And they, Manny's a player's coach. So I get why the players like him, He lets them do whatever they want. I feel like sometimes. But kudos to the team. Forget the coaches. Kudos to the team.
I agree.
I like these players. I like this team. I like how they fight. I'm not a big fan of James Williams constantly jumping up and down, waving his arms every play. Just play, man. But the energy is fun. Watching James play is fun, And I like how they're starting to use him. And it's such a shame because this team had so much potential to be a fun team to watch. They got a crazy defensive lineman, Nessa Silvera. You don't know if he's going to punch the guy in the head on the play or just go back to his position. James Williams constantly moving. I don't know if he has, I don't want to say ADD, but he's constantly, he doesn't sit still. He's he's like a kid who just is always moving around. And then, you got some other characters on this team, and it just would have been so much fun, if they really had been winning and got the national attention. I mean, it would have been a fun ride for us as media members to watch this team do really, really well. And it's a shame it's gone so far south, but I'm hoping, like I've said before, I think there's a recipe to success for next year. I really do. I think next year they're not starting from zero. No matter who's coaching the team, they are not starting from zero. Now, I will say this. I can't make a case that they're going to be better next year than this year because, they are not recruiting well right now, and you are going to lose some players, and we'll see what happens. Listen, recruiting is not as important anymore with this. I don't know if people are aware of this, but they added 7 to the 25 initials, and the 7 is free scholarships. Well, they're all free, but they're extra scholarships for transfers who have left. So if you have 7 transfers that transfer out of your program, Mark Pope, D. Wiggins, just add them up. You can bring that many in to your roster that won't even count against your 25 initials. And that's the new recruiting for Miami right now, because you're not beating teams for 4 and 5 stars. You're just not. It doesn't matter, if they bring in a top new coach, okay, you can get some, but it's going to be a little too late. But
Charleston Rambo's a 4-star.
Yes.
If you can get those guys to come, it's the same thing.
Listen, I've said it before. Cut the fat off the roster, whoever the new coach is, if there's a new coach, even if it's Manny. Cut the fat off the roster. Cut 15 guys, period. Your worst 15. Bring in 15 transfers. 7 of them will count as free scholarships.
Yep.
And then you can still sign your signing class. You're gonna have room for another, bunch of guys from the guys who are leaving the program anyway. Like that's the recipe to success if you hit in the transfer market. So forget recruiting. Like if this was 5 years ago, Miami would be screwed. Screwed. The roster would be depleted. There'd be no recruiting class in these kinds of situations. The transfer portal is the savior in the situation. It's what Michigan State did. It's what other teams have done. And it's a get rich quick scheme. And
regardless of who the coach is.
Yeah. So fans should not be worried if there's no signing class. There's a tiny signing class. It's like, this program will get through the next year and be good next year, in my opinion. And then you got to just hit recruiting hard. You got to have a good year and hit recruiting hard.
Well, it'll depend who they get in the transfer portal. There's no guarantee that the better players in the transfer portal are going to want to come here. You got to still be able to recruit them.
The Syracuse transfer kid has not gotten an offer yet, so at least they're being somewhat selective still. He left campus yesterday evening, and he's leaving today to go back home, but no offer as of last night when I spoke to him.
All right, so no matter where you line up on all of this, we have tons of coverage on the website this morning. We've got our by the numbers, how Miami graded out in the game according to Pro Football Focus. We have our fifth quarter Q&A where we go back and forth on all the issues coming out of the game. Make sure you check that out. Of course, our game coverage from the weekend. If you weren't on the site late Saturday night or Sunday, that's still there. You can go back and take a look at all of our game coverage as well. So urge you to look at all that. Now, Matt mentioned the tight end from Syracuse, potential transfer, who visited this weekend. There was some other recruiting activity this weekend. Linebacker commit Justin Medlock passed through. We have a story with him talking about his whirlwind trip this weekend. JUCO defensive lineman by the name of Fefri Emba, I guess he pronounces his name.
He's French.
Yeah, I figured that out. He talks about
it's so much fun talking to him because he's got the accent and everything, and he's sort of a little bit unsure of the English language sometimes. He's a super nice kid. I mean, I love that kid to death. And by the way, I love Justin Medlock. Justin Medlock is going to be media are going to love him. Super nice kid, down to earth, talks his mind. I mean, both those guys were great interviews.
Emba talks about his official visit, so check that out. And then we've got the story about the Syracuse transfer tight end who came in on an unofficial visit this past weekend, and then we'll be visiting officially again. The plan is down the road, possibly in December, but that's a long way from now. A lot can happen between now and then. We'll see what happens there. And then a offensive lineman from the state of Georgia by the name of Tyler Williams also visited this weekend. Miami's his only Power 5 offer to this point, but he still didn't commit. And didn't really give an idea of when he will commit. But we've got an update on his visit and everything that he saw and how he felt about it this weekend. So a whole bunch of those recruiting tidbits there for you.
I think there's a story about Ja'Curry Brown up this morning too, no?
Yeah, and I was going to get into that's what I was going to say next. There is a story about Ja'Curry Brown. He basically talks about how pretty much regardless of who the head coach is, he still wants to come to Miami. He's sold on the school as much as the coaches. So that'll be something else to monitor moving forward. There's going to be so much happening over the next, month, 2 months. It's going to keep everybody busy for sure. All right. Also coming up this morning, you're going to have Manny Diaz speaking twice this morning. We'll have all the coverage on that. We're also have plans to speak to Rhett Lashley later on today. We'll have that for you. Bob Shoop is supposed to talk to us. That's Manny Diaz's defensive analyst. Get some insight into what's going on defense from Bob Shoop. So a lot coming on the website as the day goes forward today. And then, of course, there's always tons of action on the message boards. So that's going to do it for Good Morning CaneSport for now. For Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you so much for joining us once again for Good Morning CaneSport, and we'll see you tomorrow once more, everybody. Have a great day.